I'm Mike Bond on the chair, joined today by my colleagues Paul Koretz and Nuri Martinez. We are going to begin shortly. Before we do, I just want to note what is a frequent dynamic in this and other committee meetings, where I often hear from members of the public or see the reactions on their faces that they have been horrified or appalled by some of the vile language that some of the speakers use here that is racist, misogynistic, anti-immigrant, homophobic, and they have, according to the First Amendment, the right and the ability to do that. And that very well may happen here. So I want to warn folks in advance that may happen. And because people have been really offended and really shouldn't have to listen to it. I have to listen to it, but you don't have to. I have purchased earplugs for people who are here in the audience. They're hate speech prophylactics, and they will be over there, and they're available for anyone to use. The time that often happens is when we do a collective general public comment. I'm going to start with the general manager's report, and then I will do the collective general public comment. So you'll have time to grab them if you'd like. With that, let's go to item number 1.
Item number 1 is the general manager from LADOT's report on the status of mobility for pedestrians and cyclists and vehicles within the city in recognition of DOT employees for outstanding service.
Thank you very much, Council Member and members of the committee. Today, as usual, we are here to recognize some great employees that we have at LADOT. If you would please just stand when I call your name. We're acknowledging 6 exceptional employees from our Specialized Transit and Grants Division. Supervising Transportation Planner Martha DeAndrea, Supervising Transportation Planner Mariana Valdivia, Transportation Planning Associate 2, Nora Chin. Transportation Planning Associate 2, Angela Trin. Transportation Planning Associate 2, Jennifer Lee. And Transportation Planning Associate 2, Chuck Hammerstein. This is our transit grants team, and having been in transportation, finance, and planning for over 20 years, I can say they are by far some of the most exceptional professionals and grant writers that I have ever had the great joy and honor of working with. Just this year, they have secured over $40 million in competitive grants for transit capital and operations. About $35 million of that coming just in the last few months, and most of that focused on LADOT's goal to transition to all EV procurement for our buses. They are currently managing over $100 million in federal, state, and special grants. Their recent work has accomplished fundings to secure over 150 electric buses, electric bus chargers, maintenance yard upgrades, 14 city-ride vehicles, and funding for an electric commuter bus. This mighty team recently completed a federal triennial audit, a federal disadvantaged business enterprise goal, and are initiating new transportation planning research to best serve the citizens of Los Angeles. Martha DeAndrea leads the team by example. She is strategic in her approach and trains her staff to focus on the highest quality of mobility access for all. Martha prioritizes learning by participating in the C40 Financing Sustainable Cities Initiative and is spearheading the LA Regional Electric Bus Group. The team's ability to maintain compliance with regulatory agencies, be awarded competitive grants, engage community partners, and do research to pave the way for future mobility needs of the city allows LADOT to keep moving LA forward toward zero emission. Please join me in congratulating them for their outstanding performance and their commitment to LADOT's and the city's vision and mission.
Thank you all. Congratulations, everybody. You getting them nice certs now?
They have always gotten nice certs, and they get their photos taken and put up in the lobby at LADOT.
Nice, excellent. I hadn't noticed the certs before.
And an annual breakfast that you host.
Yes, I know. That all members of the council are welcome to attend.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. you have any questions for the General Manager?
No, besides congratulations, women get it done.
That's right. You're here. Plus Chuck, but he's on vacation, so.
Because men don't, apparently.
I take no position on your statement.
Mr. Kress, do you have anything? Okay, I'm going to hold this item open because there's some general public comment cards on this, so if you could go back. I will now do multiple people who have filled out cards on multiple items. Mr. Previn, Mr. Herman, and Ms. Ramirez.
Thank you, Councilmember Bonin. It's Eric Previn from CD2, and we have Koretz and Nuri Martinez today. Very exciting. I ordinarily don't come to this meeting, as you know, but there was an item that did catch my attention because over the years I've been tracking the fine work of Xerox Corporation and Conduent. And now at item 8, we have finally justice is being restored, and you are giving them a little larger order going forward. This, just for the record, is a contract that initiated in 2011, was a 2-year deal. Then we extended 2 one-year options until 2015. And then in 2015, we've got a 3-year extension to 2018. And now we are exercising the first of a 2-year extension. So we're looking at 7 or 8 years. This is about intelligent parking management, I believe. It's the LA Express Park program, which is a way of putting sensors all over the city and charging different rates at different times in order to get, revenue. Now, yes, it's fair to say that this is for the Special Parking Revenue Fund, and that the fund will also cover the additional $5 million for Conduent. So the only thing that I have asked, and I've asked Mark Lowe of the Ethics Commission to do it, just so that we're all clear, because when a contract gets extended for so many years without any competitive bidding, it raises the question, do they also have the citation contract, which I think they do. They have some citation contracts. So the lobbying activity is very important. And certainly, Mr. Bonin, that they do lobby. Of course they do. They have to. And they lobby through, I think, Manat Phelps, and also, I believe, Englander, Knobby, and Allen at some point. But we just like the whole scope of that so that it can be very clear. Because when, Commissioner, Councilmember Englander tries to take attitudes about various members of the public who try to participate in these meetings, it's very disturbing as you all sit there kind of like acknowledging it as if it's somehow an okay thing to do, when in fact we do bring information that the public wants to know because we are the ones actually getting cited, and we like to pay attention.
You can do a minute for general public comment?
Sure. In general public comment, I have to just bring up how pleased I am that you're working cooperatively with the LA MTA. Thank you for that. There's an item on your agenda today that reviews some of that work. At the county, we also have projects with that group. And there's one that is very exciting over on 3606 West Exposition Boulevard here in the city of LA. And it involved some activity from the former regional planning guy, Bruckner, who's now the lobbyist from Mayor Brown. And the problem is that he kind of poked into his 1-year post-government holdback before he started working for them because he was so excited to help Mark Ridley Thomas. And the concern is that he may have violated that ordinance. I don't know. I'm excited about the project. It's Watt Companies. But I do think we have to get to the bottom of it so people know that entering into early negotiating agreements with kind of preferential feedback and guidance from insiders is not cool at all because it's unfair to the rest of the people. Thank you.
So just like Los Angeles at a loss for parking privileges,
let's start
the ADA also provides that the public have accommodations by private entities by reasonable, accessible parking. Have many of you seen the Joe's parking throughout our city? It's managed like a racketeering service under 42 U.S.C. 12187 for the record, and also under 42 U.S.C. 12181 through 12189, which says private entities include all privately owned businesses and organizations which offer service to the public. Now, how many of you have been to these parking areas where the infrastructure in the area is unsafe? You bring out your disabled parent or your disabled Chongo child and they slip and fall in that parking lot. Who's at fault? Who's taking liability for that? That should fall on the city of Los Angeles, because it uses these so-called private entities to take your money away simply for parking. And parking privileges in Los Angeles have become a dollar figure that should allow persons to park in all restricted zones. Apparently not, because as you know, the city is in a shortage of a budget deficit. So they have to engage with these restrictions in these zones and create no parking privileges, strictly targeting the elderly and the disabled. And when you park at a metered space for free, it's not for free, because right behind you comes the meter ticket man, ready to suppress you and hold you accountable to pay for Eric Garcetti's campaign machine out there in every state that he's been attending and not fixing our infrastructure. Now to my general public comment. Why in the hell is Wesson involved in restricting a height and a length for parking vehicles? Why is that? And item 6, that of Mommy Nuri there. By the way, Mommy looked very elegant yesterday in her suited attire. But it distracts me from participating in public meetings because I'm distracted by the white cunt asshole up there who tries to eject me simply for telling the truth under Vehicle Code 22511.56 and also 22511.5, which again prohibit the parking of vehicles displaying a sale or disabled placard advertising their private sale or their private privilege to sleep in their car while being homeless in a goddamn city like Los Angeles that is rich up the ass with development, and not one fucking developer steps up to give us a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. Please go ahead. Which items are you here on today?
Yes. Good afternoon, Chair and council members. I'm on item 18-0244.
Okay. Oh, is it just that one item?
Yeah.
Oh, we had you down for 2 different items, so.
Okay.
General public comment?
No, I'm pretty sure I pressed that one and
Okay.
for the proposal.
Okay.
So I can come back when that
yeah,
item is.
Yeah, well, I'll call you up when we do that item. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, colleagues, we've heard the general manager's report. Without objection, we'll approve that. I was going to recommend for consent consideration items 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8. Any objections? Okay, seeing no objections, those items are approved. That brings us to item number 2.
Item number 2 is a communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of Mr. Boris Corbus to the Board of Taxicab Commissioners for the new term ending June 30th, 2023.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Boris Corbus.
How are you doing today?
That's who I am.
How are you today?
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Great. So you've been on the commission for 5 years. Is that correct? 5?
That is correct.
Okay. And the mayor's recommending reappointment. Tell me what you have found to be most rewarding over the past 5 years and what you're hoping to get accomplished in your next term.
The most rewarding was the opportunity to see the Department of Transportation organizing some major, structured, well-supervised functioning at the smallest budget possible. And that's a remarkable feat, don't get me wrong.
Okay.
The staff has to be commended, not just for this, for the work of the individuals that appear before you today, but for the day-to-day grind of most of the people out on the street, out in the field, fencing off some major challenges of shortage of and there is one of the two major messages I would like to leave with you. It would be a request to consider increasing the operating budget for the Department of Transportation. It is doing an amazing job, and as we are facing the Olympics, that has to be a consideration to be taken.
No, I'm down with that. Mr. Kretz, any questions?
Yeah, I wonder if there are things yet to be done that could allow the taxi industry, rather than becoming a dinosaur, to be on a more even playing field with the other TNCs.
It's not just the TNCs. Over the fairly short period of time of my being on the board and being privileged to have my voice heard, sometimes against some rather stiff opposition among my comrades, or at least, but engaging in a debate, considering the real challenges that are facing this industry, was one of the most truly rewarding experience. And I'm looking forward to continue to make sure that the taxi industry continues to be a viable part of transportation solutions in the city. But to answer your question directly, one of the major issues that we're facing with is uncertainty and the change in which the role of taxi cabs is dwindling because of the presence of other modes of transportation on the street, not just the TNCs, but the bicycles, for example, that have now become a reason not to allow hailing in areas where the bicycle lanes are available, and the absence of mitigating factors towards the developments where there is a tremendous structured loss of parking space or dedicated pickup spaces for taxi cabs throughout the city. It's overlaid on, of course, the problem that we're dealing with multiple jurisdictions with multiple regulating powers within the county. And so delivery of passengers and delivery of proper passenger services is not something that is easy to accomplish given the patchwork of jurisdictional options and the still availability of what used to be bandit tax companies, and now they're called TNCs. The problem that is squarely on the shoulders of this committee and the council is how to respond to the two events that are coming up. The first one, of course, is the anniversary of the franchise system. It outlived itself. The city can no longer deliver the fundamentals that the franchise system was based on. It cannot determine on the basis of its thoughtful, expert-based necessity and public necessity and convenience the limitation on the number of taxi cabs on the street, because we have a superstructure, so to speak, the presence of those entities that are not bound by those restrictions, neither price-wise nor number-wise. So the scope of services delivered to the public is significant. The second issue we're dealing with, of course, is the Olympics, and making sure that the taxi cabs, which in the eyes of many future visitors to this city, remain an acceptable, viable, and I would say solid performer of the whatever needs to be satisfied as far as visitors and athletes are concerned, remains a major challenge. We're dealing with somewhat deteriorating quality of drivers. We have lost a number of people who had intimate knowledge of the city culture, of the city tone and morale, and because of the financial pressures, owners are ready to pick up any lease drivers or substitute drivers or primary drivers of their vehicles that they can find, and it's getting harder and harder. So those are the challenges that we as both rulemakers and advisors to the council are facing, and I would very much like the council to pay attention to the issue of franchise framework that we had established, precisely because it is no longer in a position to deliver the limitations that the city took upon itself to the taxi industry. Other than that, I think we're fortunate to have a mayor that has a very panoramic vision of transportation solutions. Life, as we know, is nonlinear. New things are coming up, and that's where my greatest future challenges lie, not just mine, but for the commission. Driverless cabs, air flying cabs, safety issues involved in both new emerging modes of transportation. If you think that's a dessert after the main course, no. It's probably the most difficult aspect that needs to involve different layers of city government and the public. But thank you so much for the wonderful opportunity to serve this amazing city.
Anything else? No. Ms. Martinez? All right, so looks like without objection, we'll recommend the full council approve the nomination and the appointment. And this will be going to council. Do we have a date?
John White, City Clerk. Mr. Gorbis will be in council this Friday.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Very much. Welcome. Okay, that brings us to item number 6.
Item number 6 is a Wesson Martinez motion requesting the city attorney to prepare and present an ordinance to prohibit the parking of vehicles displaying a for sale sign or placard advertising their private sale on the 1900 to 2200 blocks of 10th Avenue.
Okay. Do we have somebody here from CD10? Come on up. How are you today?
Good afternoon. My name is
Jeff is waving at you.
Good afternoon. My name is Billy Green. I'm a deputy for Council President Herb Wesson, and that happens to be the grid area that I take care of. Unfortunately, that is a residential area, and we have a gentleman who parks probably 20 cars for sale within that block, sometimes more. Residents do not have parking space, and he puts the signs on the cars and will not take them off. And you know the cars are for sale, and he stands there and sells the cars all day, leave them there all night, so the residents do not have any parking spaces on that particular street. And that's why we're asking for this.
Okay, and the restrictions would be from the 1900 to the 2200 blocks of 10th Avenue?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. City Attorney, have we made sufficient findings?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, okay. Any objections with moving forward on this, Ms. Martinez?
No, I haven't.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
We'll recommend approval. Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to item number 9. And I'd like to save the best for the last, Mr. Hirano, so before I call you up, I'm going to do the public comment. And the public comment is Stephanie Ramirez, Patty Berman, and Ann Wynn.
Can I just announce that item 9 is the CAO report relative to implementing the transit service analysis, Phase 1, recommendations to expand LADOT Dash, Commuter Express, and other transit services.
Thank you so much. My name is Stephanie Ramirez, and I'm here on behalf of AARP California. I want to commend the committee members, LADOT, and everybody who worked on this. We really love to see the augmentation of resources to older adults in this. But we also want to urge the committee to consider how we can have a strategic conversation to better understand the mobility needs of older adults. AARP recently commissioned a joint study with USC and UCLA that's actually going to be released pretty shortly, where we talk about the transportation mobility patterns of low-income older adults in the city. And so we were able to survey, do walkabouts, do focus groups, not just in neighborhoods, in the middle of the city, but throughout, and in Korean and in Spanish. And so we urge you to consider how this study can inform how this proposal goes forward.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ann Wynn, speaking today on behalf of the Central City Association. We'd first like to thank DOT and Councilmember Weezar for their work with the community to move this plan forward. As our city center continues to grow by nearly 10,000 people a year, these new routes and increased frequencies will make Dash more useful to more people. Much of downtown's growth is expected in areas where there's limited transit access, and these service improvements become even more important. We're excited for Dash to become a service that people can rely on 24 hours a day, weekday or weekend, and we hope that you'll approve it today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patty Berman, President of the Downtown Los Angeles Neighborhood Council. We had put in some letters and had several meetings with LADOT about a year and a half to 2 years ago on this particular subject. And although we really appreciate that there has been an expansion of certain lines for evenings, weekends, the D-Dash has been crippled, and the D-Dash is the only one that goes from Historic Core into South Park. The hospital, which is one of the major places that we need to have the transportation going, has been completely left out of this. And instead, it just goes down Broadway, makes a little turnaround, and comes back up. I would really like to have a reconsideration of having the D-Dash continue on into South Park, and especially to hit the hospital, which is a very, very major location. And to remind you that people going to the hospital may not be in a condition to walk 3 or 4 blocks to get there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, staff, come on up. Welcome, Mr. Hirano. Before you start, since I suspect you'll be focusing mainly on the financing aspect of it, let me just sort of frame for the folks here what a great item we have before us today. That this is about restoring and enhancing neighborhood transportation in the city of Los Angeles, something which is sorely needed, something which had been hurt significantly by the economic downturn several years ago, and that we're finally building back from and expanding. And I think DOT and CAO have done some really good work on this. And what we have before us is something which really is a win for every council district in the city. Most districts have existing Dash service, and this will extend hours of service, including evening and weekends on all routes and nights in downtown Los Angeles. It'll increase bus frequency to every 15 minutes on weekdays and 20 minutes on weekends, and it will realign routes to better serve current travel patterns and improve reliability. It's also adding some new Dash routes in Boyle Heights West, in Pacoima, and in Canoga Park. And in the part of town that does not have Dash service, my area, they're going to add a spur to one of the commuter express lines and use us sort of as a guinea pig and do a micro transit pilot program serving the area in my district around the public housing project and connectivity, first mile, last mile to the nearby expo system. And finally, this will also be restoring city ride subsidies from $42 to $84 per quarter. That's back to pre-recession levels, and it'll implement a cost-saving taxi overflow service to deploy taxis when city ride vehicles aren't available. So this is all really, really good stuff. And the question that Mr. Hirano has been tasked with is, how do we pay for this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. David Hirano with the Office of the CAO. As you indicated, you asked our office to come back with an implementation plan for Phase 1 of the transit service analysis. For those who are listening who may not understand what Phase 1 is, DOT did a transit service analysis and divvied up their recommendations into 2 phases, and it was your instruction that we should come back with an implementation plan to fund Phase 1, but not Phase 2. So the CAO report before you does that. I should note that Phase 1 will increase ongoing operational costs on an annual basis from approximately $76 million a year to $139 million a year, an increase of approximately 82%. As a result, the task you gave us was not an easy one. However, the task was made significantly easier by the cooperation of DOT staff and management and DOT's history of responsible financial management within the Proposition A fund. The plan before you incorporates primarily funding within Proposition A and the use of grants that are available to the city from other outside sources. The one deviation from that is that we are also recommending that the city approve the use of $25 million in commercial paper on a revolving basis to front fund the purchase of buses that are funded from grants. What that would do is allow us to free up some additional cash within Proposition A to help fund this, and we believe that the impact on MICLA and CP citywide will be very minimal, and this is worth doing. So we are recommending that as part of the financial plan. In addition, I was just approached earlier, well, let's see. The financial forecast, I should point out, that we have that supports our recommendation does show a operating deficit 10 years from now in fiscal year 27-28. That operating deficit is estimated at about $12.8 million. However, forecasting is an inaccurate science at best, and we believe that there are many conditions that will potentially change our forecast both up and down, increase or decrease the potential deficit over the next 10 years. We think what's critical over the next decade is for DOT to work closely with our office, the Office of CLA, the mayor, and all of you to proactively manage Proposition A and the costs within the transit program to avoid creating an operating deficit. And we've discussed this with DOT management, and they have agreed to work with us and to manage the program that way, so we feel comfortable recommending moving forward. Today, DOT also asked that we add a couple additional recommendations, which, if you're okay, I'd like to read into the record as well. It would be recommendations number 17 and number 18. Recommendation number 17 would be to authorize LADOT to enter into contracts with Proterra to purchase 25 battery electric buses as part of the no-load grant. Did I get that right? Okay, thank you. Recommendation number 18 would be to authorize LADOT to enter into contracts with selected bus manufacturers to purchase up to 130 electric buses as part of the TIRCP grant award. And if you're okay with adding that, I will get the language to the city clerk so that they can add that to the record. So based on everything I've just said, we would respectfully request that you approve the CEO report before you, along with the two additional recommendations. I do want to take one moment to also give credit to Ida Rubio of our office, who could not be here because she has scheduled vacation when this hearing was held. But Ida did 99% of the work for our office on this. And
I was wondering why it was so good.
Yeah, exactly. She is fantastic. She did a great job in working with Ms. Ralph back here. The two of them put together a fantastic plan, so I want to make sure that credit is given where it's due. And with that, our staff from our office and the Department of Transportation are available to answer any questions that you might have and request your approval.
This was so good, I was going to say I want this Dave Hirano back during the annual budget process. I guess it's Ida I want.
You want Ida.
I want
yes,
Ida, okay. Well, that's good. But since she's not here, let me ask you a couple questions.
Okay.
One is about the long-term financial sustainability of Prop A. You talked a little bit about that. Historically, transit services have been the primary use of Prop A. What other projects or programs are we currently funding with Prop A that contribute to the long-term shortfall in the fund?
The transit programs that are in here, City Ride, Commuter Express, and Dash, plus the downtown streetcar, and the payment of the 3% contribution to Metro for the Measure R regional projects that the City Council and Mayor committed to several years back. I think it was about 2014. And I think there are a couple of minor bicycle program expenditures as well.
They're non-transit stuff that gets sucked out of Prop A?
Well, we view all of it as transit related, with exception of small bicycle appropriations that are currently in there, because even the 3% is related to the rail lines that Metro is building and the streetcar, obviously, is transit.
Sure. Yeah. As we look at sort of the long-term structure, I would argue this is probably one of what should be the highest priority use of Prop A is Dash and these types of neighborhood services.
Agreed.
And then I had another question for you. Ms. Martinez, do you have anything before I find my other question?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
So since Prop A is a major source of funding for our DASH system, have you thought about reconsidering other funding commitments to ensure that the DASH system is fully funded?
We did, but we were looking at that as a strategy that we would use basically if we couldn't figure out a way to do this primarily within Prop A. But we feel that we figured out a way to do this primarily within Prop A with the exception of the commercial paper mechanism, and so we didn't feel the need to go out and look at making recommendations on the other transit funds. However, if you would like to do that or supplement with general fund, whatever, to enhance the services, you're always welcome to do so, and if you want us to do that for you, we will do that.
And since you mentioned the purchasing of electric batteries, how will the electrification of the fleet impact or change the cost of the facilities? How is that going to impact the system? Have you factored that in?
Yes, the impact of the changeover to electric buses has been factored into the forecast.
I read through your report. Does the report take that into consideration for future funding commitments to the DASH program?
Yes.
I didn't find it. Where is it at?
It's buried in some of the line items in the spreadsheets. If you want, we can go through it in detail with you offline.
Yeah, just
if you
tell
like.
me, point to where that's at in the report, because I didn't see that. And the other question I had, what opportunities are there within Measure M? Is there local return the only option, or do we have other options to look at?
Measure M, local return is our primary option, but there may be some.
Are we using all of it for street
There may be
paving?
some ability to get money from Metro as they make it available through grants, but at this point, I think our best bet is to try and fund everything within Proposition A and then take advantage of any grant opportunities, whether it be Measure M or SB1 or any other program out there as they come up. But we've done our best working with the expertise that Ms. Ralph brought to the table to try and incorporate all the known grant opportunities. DOT has been very successful in securing grants, and so while normally we may be a little cautious in trying to count grant revenue, that history of success has led us to be much more comfortable in programming a lot of this in.
The other thing I had, Mr. Chair, is until we figure out how to pay for Phase 1, I'm concerned about the expansion of Phase 2, which is something to consider.
Yep.
I want to direct staff to come back with an implementation plan for Phase 2. Realistically, when do we see us implementing Phase 2? That would cover a lot of communities of color in my district that I'm very concerned about making sure we expand the system into those communities. So I want a realistic timeline of when we can get to Phase 2. That's all I have.
Okay.
I'm sorry, were you formally adding that to the list of instructions that the committee will approve?
I would just, yeah.
Okay.
I would like to.
Yeah.
I would like to do that, yes.
Okay.
There'll be
So that would be
your now 18 recommendations to CAO report, Ms. Martinez's recommendation, and then I'm going to ask for a few others as well. I'll just state them now. I'd like to direct LADOT and CAO to report back in 90 days with a 10-year forecast of revenues and expenditures, including ongoing operational and foreseeable one-time capital expenses for Prop A and C and measures R&M local return. I'd like to ask LADOT to report back after completion of Metro's next-gen bus realignment study and prior to implementation of new dash routes to ensure that the the TSA recommendations don't provide duplicative transit service and that we're adding value. And then I'd also like to ask DOT, in consultation with the Department of Aging and the Department of Disability, to report back in 180 days with a comprehensive analysis of transit services for senior and/or disabled populations, including the identification of overlapping services, gaps in services, and opportunities to more effectively and efficiently meet the mobility needs of these populations through new partnerships and technologies. And yes, Mr. White, we will provide that in writing to you.
Thank you.
Finally, I had one other concern. I started this by saying that every council district was getting something. I'm a little concerned that there's one district where it's a little bit vague, and that's mine. Because we don't have an existing dash service that is getting enhanced. The main sort of piece of sugar for our area is the microtransit pilot project. And that looks a little vague and undefined to me at the moment. And I don't want to hold this item up because this is very important to a lot of constituencies. But what I am going to ask is for LADOT, before this gets to council, so we'll wait a couple weeks for this to get to council, but still in October, to come back and give me a detailed report on the pilot, when it will start, how it will operate, what the physical, what it will look like physically in terms of the stops, and whether or not the financials recommended here are sufficient to launch a pilot and make it potentially successful, because I'm concerned that it's underfinanced compared to everything else. And there are folks who live in Mar Vista Gardens and in areas of Delray that are low income that are hungry for transit and have been asking for this for 20 years. And if we're going to be delivering via a pilot program, I want to make sure we're setting it up for a good chance of success. So I just don't want to calendar this until DOT has come back with that, and then maybe I'll make an amendment when it gets to council.
Thank you.
And Councilmember, the thing I would offer you is that among the City Ride program, in your district, there are approximately a little over 1,700 people that are currently actively making use of that. A little over 700 of them are low income. So obviously the increase in subsidy will create a benefit for your district as well.
Great. Yeah. That benefits the whole city, and I'm glad for that. It's desperately needed. Just a question on that, because we're bringing it back to pre-recession levels. So that's great, except we're really not bringing it back to pre-recession levels because of inflation.
Correct.
So it's still less than folks were getting in 2008.
The face value is returning to pre-recession levels, but the value of that dollar and what it buys is not.
Right.
Yes.
So as we hopefully we'll be able to expand on that in future years as well. Okay. All right. So we will approve the CAO report with the additional 2 recommendations, Ms. Martinez's recommendation and the ones I made as well.
Thank you.
With the proviso that DOT give me the report before we get to council.
Yes, sir.
Great. Okay. So no objection. That item is approved. Thank you. To the CAO's office and to DOT. And is there anything else left? Okay. Seeing nothing else, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.